welcome to our FIDM online lecture series presents Ideas Beyond Words. FIDM Fashion Sketching. I'm Nick Verreos. I am the co-chair of the Fashion Design Department, Advanced Fashion Design Department, as well as Film and TV Costume Design Department. We are so excited to have everyone here. I know this is one of the most popular, I'm just gonna say it, online lecture series. Everybody loves it, loves it. Of course, I love it too because I'm a fashion sketcher myself. So this is always so exciting. I love seeing everybody who comes over here. I would love to know, put it in the chat if this is your first time attending this fashion sketching workshop, or you're a return customer or a return attendee. Oh, I see somebody said it's their first time. My first time. Tony says it's first time. Debbie, first time. Layla, first time. Everybody, oh my goodness, okay. It's like everybody's first time. All right. Well, welcome to this fabulous lecture series, Fashion Sketching. It's so exciting, and you have the best instructor, best fashion sketching instructor, and that is one of our favorite fashion sketching instructors, and that's Marina Leight. And she's going to be your fashion sketching instructor. There she is. Hi, Marina.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm really excited. I'm excited to hear that it's so many first-time attendees because it's a really great introduction to sketching. This is a really good one for the first.
Yes. Don't, if you haven't sketched before, don't worry, because Marina will guide you through it, the basic steps. She's going to teach you how to do the 9-head croquis. And I hear there might be some hair and some face. So she's going to give you face and maybe some a little bit of fashion, right, Marina?
Yep, that's right. I want everyone to make any sort of requests if there's anything specific that you would like to see how to do near the end of the session, and then we can get to as many as we can. And so please add it to the chat.
Yes, definitely add it to the chat, and then just wait for it, because around 6:15, I'm going to ask people to share, because we want to see, Marina and I want to see what you sketched. So this is going to be your time on stage. All right, so get ready. After you did the lesson with Marina and she taught you how to sketch, do a fashion sketch, and then you're going to share. Marina Leight, not only a fashion sketching instructor, also a designer. Make sure to check out her Instagram at Marina Leight. That's Leight Atelier. All right, that's her Instagram, and then her website, marinalight.com. She's got some fabulous fashions, jewelry. It's all there. Her Bloom 2021 collection is so great. So make sure to check out marinalight.com. So yes, not only is she a fabulous fashion sketcher and fashion sketching instructor, she's an alumni of FIDM, and she's a designer. So ladies and gentlemen, let's do it. Let's start our fashion sketching workshop with the one and only Marina Leight. I'll see you later, guys. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, Nick. Always such an absolute pleasure and an honor for us to get to have you be a part of our lessons. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put it onto the sketch cam. So you guys, welcome. I'm so excited that it's so many of your, for so many of you, that it is your first time doing a sketching class. Now, we are doing fashion sketching. Fashion sketching is a very specific type of illustration. We are going to be doing the 9-head figure. And the way it is in fashion illustration is I'm sure you've seen it, the bodies are really elongated. And also, by the way, before we get started, a really excellent book, if you're interested in learning more after this lesson, is the 9 Heads book. This is the book that we use in school here at FIDM. So before we get started, let's talk about tools of the trade. So we're going to be starting with a large piece of paper. At FIDM, we use the 14 by 17. You are welcome to use a regular 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And then we will be using a clear ruler, but honestly, you can use anything that has a flat edge to it. In a pinch, sometimes I use the edge of a notebook to use it to get my angles and my lines straight. Pencil and eraser. Find out which one works best for you. So I have been using the same kind of pencil ever since I was a kid. I love these, and I love that it's a soft pencil, but really there is no right or wrong. It has to do with what you're most comfortable working with. If you're very heavy-handed, maybe go with a lighter, a harder pencil, or if you're very, very soft-handed, use a very soft pencil so that you can get a good saturation. Pencil sharpener, and we're ready to go. So for those of you that are going to be following along with me, we are going to be starting off by drawing a straight line down our paper. I'm going to do it on one side only because I'm going to be, let me go ahead and open the chat while we're going so I can see if anyone has questions as we go. I'm going to be doing it on one side because I'll probably do another review over here, but you're welcome to do it right in the center of your page. And we're going to make a straight line down the paper. And we're going to be dividing it into 10 sections, because even though it's called the 9 head, it actually ends up being somewhere in between like a 9.5 and a 10. If at any point it feels like I'm going too quick, just let me know, and I'll try to reiterate as I'm going. So if you're doing a 14 by 17, you're doing a large piece of paper, your heads are probably going to be about 1.5 inches. If you're doing an 8.5 by 11, your heads are probably going to be about 1 inch in size. So this is what I mean. I'm starting a little bit down from the top of the paper, and this is 1.5 inches, so that's 1 head. So the top of your measurement is not your 1, that's your 0, because this is where you start. This is 1 head, 1. And you go down another 1.5 inches, another 1.5 inches, and you're gonna mark it all the way down. Now, if you don't have a ruler, a really good thing to use also is to take a little piece of paper and measure it out, and then use that as your guide as you're going down. Just something for a point of reference as you're working. Now, we're gonna draw in the head. The head is gonna be like an egg. We're making an oval. So very gently draw on your oval. Now, I have a tendency when I illustrate, I'm very sketchy. So you'll notice that I'll draw it light with a little bit of sketchy lines. It all has to do with your own style. If you like doing it really crisp and only having one single line as you go, totally fine. It all has to do with everyone's particular design style. Now, in between I'm gonna write the numbers in there so that we can keep track. This right here is our 1, this is our 2, and all the way down. Now, in between our 1 and our 2, I'm drawing a very soft line. I made it a little high first. Okay, so this is going to be where our shoulder line is. Now the 2, believe it or not, that is going to be the apex of the bust. Now, all of you fashion designers, future fashion designers, that is a term you will end up becoming quite familiar with. That means I'm wearing all black, so you can't really see. It's the center point of the bust line. So that's where the 2 is. Our 3 is going to end up being our waist. So as an illustration instructor, I really focus on making sure that the figure is balanced from head to toe proportionally. But I'm going to leave it up to you as to what your personal aesthetic and taste is for how curvy your figure is. That's where you have more freedom in being able to have variation in the physique. Whereas the balance of the body, top to bottom, needs to be a little bit more structured. Otherwise, it looks off. You can't have your torso too long and your legs too short. Like then it doesn't seem correct to the eye. But when it comes to width, whatever you feel like is beautiful, go for it. So I'm going to draw a tube coming from our oval down. That's going to be our neck. Now, when I do my shoulder line into my waist, I draw mine based off of the top of my rib cage. I don't go from the edges of my shoulder because this, your shoulder point is like a hinge. So we will add the shoulders later, but this right here, your rib cage is a solid structure. So this part isn't going to move. Whereas the arms will end up moving as you position your figures in different poses. So the top of the rib cage is right about a head length. If you take my head and turn it this way, maybe a little bit wider. So if you were going to measure it out, you could say, okay, it's about 1.5 inches. You can make it a little bit wider if you want. It depends on how broad you would like for your figures to be. And that's the top of my rib cage. Now I'm going to go into my waistline. Like I was saying before, you can decide how narrow you would like the waist to be, or if you would like to have a straighter figure, totally fine. So I'm coming down, doing a gentle curve. Now in between our 3 and my 4, I'm going to draw another line. This is going to be called the high hip. Also a term that you will learn and let's get quite used to in the fashion world. You have to know high hip measurement as you're making clothes. So from this point, you're going to curve it out. And that's also going to be the point where we are going to line up our hip line. Now, right below number 4, I did a little line that is going to be the crotch line. Make sure as you're illustrating this, not to make the crotch line too wide, because then it ends up making the opening of the hips a bit too wide. You can make the hips curved out as wide as you like, but don't make the opening too wide because then it won't look like the bone structure is balanced well. So starting from the crotch line, you're going to do a soft curve going up into that hip point. Now, at this point, is everyone doing all right? We good? Just want to make sure that everything's flowing and I'm not going too quick. Okay, so we have our, oh yay, thank you. We're gonna go ahead and now draw in our knees and our ankles, and they are going to be tennis balls and they are going to be softballs. I think softballs are bigger. So we'll say right here, we got our knees are gonna be at our 6. And our ankles are going to be right above our 9. It's like a softball, tennis ball, right? Okay. So now that we've marked out where those guys are, I'm going to go ahead and do a gentle curve. And if you notice, look at the position of my hand. I'm doing it from the side because I can sweep down like this. If I come in like this, I can't see what I'm doing. So I move my pencil and I very gently from the side of my pencil sweep it down. And to do the other side, what I'd recommend, go ahead and turn your paper. Now, since I have a camera on the paper, I can't do that. So I'm just going to come and do it on this side like this. And now we're going to draw on the thighs. I like to give some inner thigh to my figures. You can either go straight like this, or you can give some curve and get some of the inner thigh and get some muscles on there as well. Okay, so now we have thighs. Let's go into calves. The calves are going to be coming out right around the 7, and the muscles are a little uneven, so they're going to be higher on the outside and a little lower on the inside. If it's easier for you, you can take your straight edge and go straight through the center of that hip line, through those circles. And then you'll be able to see where your shin bone is. So we've got a shin bone there now. So I'm going to come out onto muscles and go down into the ankles. And you notice, like I said, I'm doing it very gently, and then I go back in after and I clean it up. Now, the cool thing about having that line for the shin bones is that I can actually go in and do some really nice shading now, and I have a guideline. So you see somebody in a skirt or shorts, you'll always notice that unless they're being really brightly front lit, you'll always get a shadow on one side of the shin because it's a pretty defined point on the body. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and illustrate our feet as if our figure is in heels. I always keep heels in my illustrating space just so that I can show you guys. So this is a stiletto. And what happens when it moves this way is that it ends up becoming kind of a little point here. And if you notice, you gotta imagine, this is where if we were in a classroom, I would be standing on a table and you guys would be looking at my feet. You would be seeing that, okay, pretend this is a foot. It's going to be wider here at this point, smaller here, and then it's gonna come up to the point where the ankle will be. Always make sure that you have an ankle and a wrist on your illustrations or it will look weird and you won't be able to tell why. So we've got our ankles on here. Now we're gonna go down into, just gonna hold it like that. I describe it as like a cowbell. So we've got a cowbell shape right here, and then you've got that toe that comes down. This is kind of what the foot looks like when your figure is standing in heels. So if you've seen fashion illustrations that have been done really quickly and they've got those little triangles, that's why. But we'll finish it up a bit more as we're going. Now, what I'm going to do is pop back up, add in more information here, and then we will draw stilettos. That's a good question. We can come back to heels. We're going to fill in the information on the top of our 9 head. So like I was saying, the number 2 is the apex of the bust. That's the highest point, but that's not the point where the bottom of the bust is. This is the apex. This is the bottom of the bust. So it actually, and you also, this is another fabulous area of complete liberty. You can decide if you, how busty or non-busty you would like your figures to be. So coming around underneath, outlining where the bottom of the bust line would be, and then we just know that this is the high point. So this is kind of like the shadow point, just the same sort of idea of the shin, that it's a high point on the body where you're going to have distinct differences of light and shadow. Okay, so now that we've got the bust line, I'm gonna have you add little teeny triangles right into the corner of the neck. And that is this guy right here, where it goes from the neck and then into the shoulder. Okay, so then at this point, let's go ahead and add the shoulder. So on our arms, you'll see how it comes down and there's a, working on it. See, imagine if I was a little bit more muscular, you would see it more, but you'll notice that this part of the shoulder comes down and then it straightens out a bit. So we're gonna add in ovals over here. That's the top of our arm. And then another thing, while I have my jacket off, I wanna show you, this right here is a rotation point. So the arm, if you notice, this is lined up with my waist, but, oh, now you can see that muscle, with my waist. But if my arm moves up, it ends up moving in a half circle. So as it's going up in the air, make sure your elbow doesn't end up becoming really far out there. It's going to end up rotating from this point. So if you have your arms up, a really nice thing to do to make sure everything stays in the right perspective, you can just do like a little like half circle type thing. And then you know, okay, my wrists, my elbows are only going to go to there. And on this one, we can have the arm come down and we know the elbow's right there. So let me pick this up so you guys can see what I did. Do you see that little half circle? So if your arm's up, it's only going to be going in this like half circle shape. Okay, so we have a long elongated rectangle for the upper arm, and then we're going to do the same cowbell shape for the forearm, but we're just going to make it longer. See how it's thinner here and then wider here? And then at this point, we're going to add in wrists. And then the hand, same thing. It's a cowbell. We're adding a long, elongated triangle as the fingers. This is a very simplified but totally usable method for illustrating a fashion hand. Usually illustrators will pick a few, maybe like 2 or 3 hand shapes, and they'll use it every single time. They kind of figure out what's the easiest. And it's something like this, or like this, or like this. It's usually the cowbell with the fingers with maybe one pinky sticking off to the side or something. So we got our cowbell. I did a pinky off to the side. This one I'll do straight coming down and kind of hidden onto the thigh. Okay, so how are we doing, everybody? We good? Fabulous. So I'm going to go ahead and mark off the how the face is broken up. And I'm going to show you something that a lot of you guys probably won't realize, and it always blows people's mind because they automatically want to draw eyes onto the forehead, but the eyes are actually the halfway point on a face. I have a very high forehead, so the whole face example isn't as great for me. Imagine my hairline was like here, but this is where my eyes are, and this is where the top of my head is. The eyes are the center of the head. So if I draw a line right down the middle of my head, that's actually where my eyes are going to go. And I'll mark in a little bit for a hairline. And for the face, what I'm going to do is at that point, I add in a little circle to mark in a space for the chin, so you don't end up losing space for it. Let's do another oval for our mouth and a little spot for the nose. So I've marked in where everything's going to end up going. Length of the forearm is the same length of the upper arm. So the bicep goes to the waist. If you notice, you put your arm here, your wrist is at that armpit point. So this length is the same as this length. Okay, so I've marked in the basic area of the face. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning her up and adding in a little bit of detail. And then depending on where we are at time-wise, I want to be able to go into a little detail on how to illustrate a face when it's been made really small, because it's something that is usually a little bit tricky to wrap your head around, but then once you kind of see what to look for, it's actually pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is I'll go in and I'm going to clean it up. I'm making the face, and this is another place you get to choose how slender or boxy, heart-shaped, oval, round you want to make the face. Now I'm filling in all of these spaces here, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to go ahead and just clean up one side of the figure. Then that way you guys can see like kind of the before and after. Sounds like a good plan. Okay. So right at this line, we know that this is also where you would end up having collarbone, little dip in the neck. Be mindful not to have your armpit line going up really, really far. It's the side of the bust leads right into the arm. So it needs to have a nice soft curve coming down into my wrists. Okay, and then I'm going to fill this in. I'll bring this up a little bit more so you guys can see everything that I'm doing while I'm going through it. And then I add a little, you see like a little dimple on the knee, and you can kind of maybe add some muscle on there. Make sure that you have the sides of the knee need to be kind of straight. And then going into the calf muscles. Okay, just checking the chat, make sure that we're all good. Make sure I give some love to the ankles. And then this is actually very unusual for me. I love big hands and really giant feet when I'm illustrating. So I think this one's actually pretty accurate, but usually I make the feet really, really big. So if you ended up making huge feet, we're good. Another area that you can totally personalize it. Okay, so we've got all of our guidelines on there. I'm going to go ahead and erase some information, and then I'll put in a little bit of shading. So let's go ahead and erase all of this. By the way, I'm so obsessed with these yellow pencils. I have them everywhere. If you run into me, there is a good chance that there will be 6 or 7 of them in my hair. It's actually quite handy. Okay, so erased away some of the information. And now what I'm going to do, oh, I'm working on a flat surface, but my sometimes I'm adjusting my camera to get the whole picture in, so it looks like it's at a little bit of an angle. So for shading, I want to show you guys something. So if you're looking at your pencil here, this area, there's a lot more space on this part of the lead here on the side. So when you shade and you're holding it, you end up getting a much softer, even shade. So this is how I do most of my shading. And then if you tilt it slightly up like this, a little bit at an angle, you can get a shade and a really firm line together. See how that edge of that line is really crisp on one side? So I'll go through and do some shading. And when you're doing your shading, you can either blend with a blender like this, totally fine. It's made out of cardboard, or you can take a pencil, you can wrap the tip around with a paper towel and blend with that, totally fine. Or you can use your hand. Only downside to your hand has oils in it, so you will end up getting weird smudges. Doesn't mean I don't end up using my hands, even though I know better. But if I have access to something, I will always go for that. I'm gonna go ahead and do the face while I'm doing this, and then after we'll go ahead and I'll talk to you a little bit more detail about the face. So we know this is the eye line. The eyes, ovals on the side. Notice the space in between these guys, same size as the eyes themselves, and about the same size on the side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm also going to mark in the eyebrow. Eyebrow goes about straight up from the corner of the eye. And this is really cool. All parts of the body correlate to each other. So as you're illustrating, you'll kind of start seeing that you have all of these little cheats as you go. So the side of the start of the eyebrow matches up with the corner of the eye, which generally matches up with the side of the nose. And then you go like this to the corner of the mouth, side of the eye, side of the eyebrow, which goes directly down into the center of the chin. Fun little drawing fact. So going up and then curving around. Eyebrows, for those of you that like doing makeup, you will probably be able to get them quite quickly. So it's essentially a check mark. As long as you have this shape, you can fill in the rest, because all hair and all lines on the face go in a circle. So the hair is going to come up and around. The lines of the lips are going to come up and around. Eyelashes come up and around. And I did that as a pretty quick scribble. Looks pretty good. So this is my baseline for my eyebrows. And then when I'm drawing my eyes, when drawing a face really small, you're only going to really be focusing on the parts that your eye notices when something's little. So that's going to be the top of the lid and a little bit coming around. And then you're going to see part of the iris. When drawing an eye, don't do a circle like this. The eye looks very scared or surprised. You want your figures to look a little bit relaxed. So part of the iris is going to go into the lid. And always give yourself a little bit of reflection. It will make it look like your figure has life. Okay, nose. When you're making them really little, there's not much information you see. I mean, like even looking at my face, what do you notice? You notice that it's a little dark on the bottom. Can't really see much. So on a figure, you can just kind of do something like this and then shade in the rest. The mouth, what do you see on my mouth? Do you see that there's a line? And then you see the lips around it. Usually upper lip is always going to be darker because of the way that the shadows are, because it comes under, and bottom lip will always be brighter because it comes out where the light can hit it. Okay, so we've got a face on there. Now I'm going to add in some shading. So side of the pencil, shading it a little around on the side of the face. Are we all doing okay? I'm doing okay on my, make sure I'm not going too quick. I can always do a review as well. Awesome, thank you. So I'm using the side of the pencil and I'm going very light, but I'm using a very light pencil. And getting a little bit on the side of the nose. And I'm gonna clean it up a little because I've got a lot of like mark lines on there, guidelines. Okay, I'm gonna leave one the way it is on one side. Using the side to mark in the sides of the nose. Getting some of the lip colored in. Now on the neck, this is going to be one of the deeper shadows because it's a part of the body where there's a pretty major overlap from one level to the other because chins stick out pretty far. So you notice how dark the shadow is underneath my jawline. There will always be a very distinct shadow line underneath the jaw. You'll also notice you get this line here on the neck. So you might do a little bit of a line here going into the pit of the neck, maybe a little shadow on the collarbone. Side of the armpit is going to come up. You're going to get some shading around the arm. My fingers are going back a little bit from the rest of the hand, so it's a little bit more shaded. And then this is the apex point here, so we're going to have shading coming around underneath on the side. If you want, you can also kind of mark in where the rib line is. And then also there's going to be, your belly button is going to be happening right in between the waistline and in between the high hip. There isn't like a specific space for the spot for the belly button. That one can be a bit higher, a bit lower. shading the thighs. And I'm just doing like a very general shading, just adding in around the edges. And then on the knee, you know, I said we had that line there for the shin. Makes it really easy to shade in. So I'm only doing one side so that we can keep flowing time-wise. I want to make sure we're still all good. Now what I'll do is let's talk a smidge about hair, and then I can go over the faces again. And then I would love for also any suggestions if there's anything specific that you would like for me to go over. And go ahead and erase this point on her. I'm only doing one side of the lines. There we go. So once you have her all shaded in, you can go in if you want and actually use your blending tool and blend some of this. It ends up making everything really soft and pretty. Like I was saying before, you can do it with a paper towel. You can do it with your finger if it's really clean. It's not too oily. You can do it with a piece of paper. But if you notice, as I'm blending it, I'm keeping the blending in really specific areas because you could easily pull the blending into your illustration. Getting on the sides of the face. All right, so I've got some information of her face on there. I'm gonna go ahead and add in a little bit more details. So I did the eye like this. Things that I would like to point out. So here is the reflection. I'm gonna add a little bit of shadow to the top, and then it'll be lighter towards the bottom of the eye. Because all eyes have a shadow on the top of the iris, and actually it has a little bit of a shadow onto the white of the eyes as well. And we'll add a little bit of, add some corners into there. Now, eyelashes. Eyelashes are really fun. So anytime that I'm doing faces, it's kind of like getting to do makeup on your model. They're going to end up going in this shape. They go up, up, and around. Okay, more on hands. Awesome. So you'll see the lashes coming off to the side. And then as they loop around, you notice it's coming down into the eye a little bit. Then it's going to go straight up and off to the side. Just like that. When you're doing the lashes on the bottom, you can just do a couple little small guys right there. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to add in some lashes on her. I'm going to give her a little bit of makeup. And to do that, I'm moving it to the side so I can get in there because I have my camera really close. And I'm coming in and I'm adding in. And see how I just did it very light? I'll make it even closer so you can see what I did on a very small face. Her eyes are a little bit, got a little bit of pencil in them. There, now it's a little bit brighter. And I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna make her upper lip a little bit darker, lower lip a little bit lighter. You can also, if you end up shading it too much and you wanna lighten it, you can go in and lighten it up with your eraser, and you can pop in some light in areas. So I can like add some to the nose. I could add some to the chin. So popping in light is really, really great way to be able to give your figures life. So let's go ahead and do hair, and then we can look at trouble with calves. Okay, yeah, totally. We'll look at that as well. Calves can be tricky. So let's talk about hair. Hair is really awesome and fun because what we're going to be doing is when you're drawing hair, Okay, let's give myself a really intense comb over. There's going to be a thighs, yeah, totally. There's going to be a point where the hair starts. So this is my part right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the outside shape. I'm going to put in some general information, and then I'm going to add in my shading and details. So if we're going to give her hair like mine, the part is going to be right here. And by the way, ears are going to be coming in right around the bottom of the nose and ending right about the top of the eyelid. And they look like beans. Essentially, they're like a bean. So we can have it come like this. You just see part of it on the side of the head. So we get some ears. Okay, so if you notice that part line, it's not straight. It goes to the side because the head curves around. So I've got my part line here. And I'm drawing my hair, I'm drawing curls. As you notice, my curls are not perfect ringlets. They end up doing these crazy shapes like this. I'm coming from this point and I'm drawing the shape and coming down. And I'm gonna have my hair go from this point and come down from here, coming down. So I've got the start point, I've got the outside shape, and then I added in a little bit of information throughout it. And then at this point, we can add in, yeah, totally, I'll do straight hair. We can add in some shading. So in hair, just like the shadows on the neck, this area in here is always going to be the darkest because it's like your little cavern back there. So if you make this area nice and dark and then start putting in a few lines of definition, you can go over the rest very lightly and it will end up giving you really great depth. So if I go in here and add in some really good shadows coming around, just darkening it up, and then getting in some, going in and adding in just a few defined areas. And all I'm doing in my defined areas is going over the same curl a couple times. I can then go in and fill it in. Now, if I want to, I can go and I can pop some light out of it with my eraser. And then I'll do some, let me get some more shadows in here and around here. I can add more, I can show you some more detailing with straight hair as well. Okay, yeah, totally. We can get braids. So now I'm gonna do a quick recap on the figure. So then, and then we'll go into some more of the details. So when I was illustrating this, I have the rib cage as its own area, and then I added the shoulders afterwards, doing them as ovals that, if you notice, are at an angle. So it's coming out. And then this is I draw the elbows in first. Elbows are at the waistline, and then matching up this guy and this guy is a long paper towel tube, a little bit bigger. And then this one, same thing, same size as this, paper towel tube, but it's a little bit wider at the top. We have another small ball for the wrist, and then the hands, yep, you can do afro. Hands are going to be cowbell, triangle. And if you want to add in, you can put a little lump there for the thumb. And if you have the wrist, when you combine them all together and then erase away the information, your guidelines, got a nice little hand. I like adding in a little pinky or finger here just to give it a little bit more depth and shading in where the fingers are. Because you see if my hand's hanging like this, well, you can't see because I'm being lit that way. If you look at it this way, it's going to end up either being darker on the top of my hand or on the fingers because it's also a high point where you're going to end up having shadows coming from one side to the other. If you want, you can add in some knuckles. Now on the thighs, this was an observation that I made this last year, that I have a tendency to draw very muscular, slender, yet muscular fashion illustrations because I grew up with a mom that was a professional ballerina. So I draw more muscles than probably most fashion illustrators. You don't have to add in your muscles here and here. If you want, you can come straight from this point and come into the knees. That's totally fine. And then for the knees, you can mark them in. And then you don't have to do the angle on the calves. You can have it be triangle coming out. Just got to make sure that those calves don't end up being really wide. Don't make them any wider than the thighs, or the body will look uneven. And then do a straight line into the ankle. Does that help? And both look totally fine. For those of you that were having, awesome, thank you. Just want to make sure that was helpful. So like I was saying, I have a tendency to do my figures a little bit more on the muscular side. Definitely does not have to be that way when you're illustrating. And then you give her a better half line. There we go. Shin line. Okay, so let's do some hair. And we are going to be we're doing good so far. So I'm going to continue with the requests, and then we'll be going into we'll be going into some of the some sharing. So Sophia asks, how can you make posing a figure less awkward? So this one, the reason why we teach it in such a straight structure is so that you can start learning the foundation to the shape. Because once you have all these shapes, you can pose her however you want. And I highly recommend using yourself as a model, using your friends as a model, and looking in magazines. You can adjust this by making it plus size by being able to adjust the width. The length this way is going to stay the same. What you're going to end up doing is adjusting the waistline, adjusting the bust line, adjusting the hips and the thighs. Wrists and knees and ankles don't vary very much, but it's going to be more where a body naturally puts on weight. It becomes more curvaceous. So let's look at hair. I'm going to go ahead and draw some heads. Hey, ladies. Okay, so hey, heads. Okay, there's one. Another. All right, so let's go ahead and start with an afro. So afro, very similar to what's happening with my hair. You're going to be drawing, well, with all of them, you're going to be drawing an outside shape. and then filling in your shading and a little bit of distinct definition on the hair strands and some light. So we've got our hairline, bottom of the ears, and I'm doing the same type of curl, but I'm making it tighter. And on the hairline, I'm going to put in a little bit of information, but I'm not filling it in all the way around. You can adjust the height. It's just make sure that your body's proportioned. Okay, so if you notice what I did, I got the outside shape, and on the hairline, I added in, I didn't fill it in all the way around because a lot of the information is going to be filled with shadows. So you can even see on my hairline, you don't see a distinct line. It's just kind of like a fuzzy shadow where the hair starts. Books I'd recommend, Nine Huts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and I'm going to fill in some shadows, and I'm doing it with the side of my pencil. And I'm doing them like this. I'm doing little swirls. In the areas where I'm coming up close to the edge of the neck, I'll put a darker line around it so that it's easier to get in tight. Okay. Now, remember I was saying it's darker around the neckline. It's going to be darker around the face. And then I'm putting just little random spots of depth. You see how it's, we've got shadow in there, and it already is looking like an afro because you have enough information there. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do it with much lighter, adding in the information. It's going to be a little bit darker around the hairline, and then it's going to be lighter up near the top because you've got light reflection. But you can see that it's a completed shape. And then if you want, you can go in and add even more line details. Oops, sorry, hit the camera. Okay, now let's talk about straight hair. So straight hair, you're gonna have a really nice flat sheen area for light reflection. So a lot of it, where this is a very soft glow, with straight hair, you're gonna have very distinct reflective areas. So let's give her straight bangs, and let's have it come down into a little bit longer than a bob. Okay. I created this, I drew out the area. This is the shape. Now I'm going to start from the hairline, and I'm going to create the lines going down. So I know that this point, it's going to wrap around the head, and I'm going to draw down towards the light reflection point, and then I'm going to draw up. So coming down from the hairline. And if you notice, same thing like with the eyelashes, I'm wrapping it around. And then from the bottom, but I leave an empty space. That's my reflection. You see? She's got a very shiny head of hair. We're going to do a center part. So if that's her part, I'm starting from this point, coming down. And then I'm gonna leave it empty right here with some reflection. Get her ears on there. I'm gonna fill in the dark part. I'm gonna move it up. And then coming down. You see how we have, and that's a really straight hairstyle. So I'm actually going to do, a kind of gentle wave on this one as well. And then we will do braids. And then I think somebody else was asking about stilettos. Okay, so this is a really, a very straight hairstyle. Let's go ahead and do a very mermaidy type wave. Something to think about when you were illustrating hair and you're coming to an end point. You don't see it in the afro, and you don't see it in a really blunt cut. You'll see it in longer hair when it gets kind of wispy at the ends, and you see it in eyelashes. Hair has a tendency to stick together at the edge, so it does this. It ends up coming together in a point. So on the end of the flowing hair, this is how it's going to end up finishing. Kind of comes together in these points like that. So now that I've drawn my kind of like my roadmap to the hair, this is the way that the waves are going. I can fill in the information. And I know that we've got a curve here. And any of the places that there's the curve, I'm going to leave it a little bit more open. Let's get the shadows coming in here. The shadows need to go in the shape of the wave. Does that make sense? So getting the shadows along the edge of the head right there. And I'm adding in some shadow points. I'm just kind of going in here and there and adding in some areas of shadow because it's going in all these waves. So you have all these different areas of shadows. Kind of fill it in. Check-in. How is everybody doing? Okay, good. Fantastic. I just want to make sure that we're all, let's see. We're not doing coloring this one, but I'll definitely let the school know as a suggestion. That would be a really fun workshop as well. Okay, so we've got, next we were going to do braids. So braids is same idea. We're gonna map out the area, and then we'll be putting in the shading and adding in some filler. So we'll do the braids as the last hair, and then we will do, I'll talk about shoes and feet a little bit. And then if there's anything else specifically that you guys would like for me to go over again. And at that point, I think that we'll be ready to share, which I'm very excited to see what everybody has been doing. You guys, thank you for joining. I always love getting to have this time working with everyone. Okay, so braids. We have the shape of the head. We have the shape of the hairline. And I'm gonna have some braids that are gonna be going back. So I have to think about the direction of the head, and I'm drawing lines as to where all the parts are going to be. So what's going to end up happening is in between each of these part points, you're going to end up having, and I'm just drawing them like this. It's like one line this way, one line this way, but I'm doing it with a little bit of a curve. Aw, thank you, Megan. I'm going to sharpen it up. So I'm making my shapes, telling my story in between here. Not perfect, but you know what, it's okay. The thing is that with illustration, you need to just have the information that the eye is expecting to be able to read. And if you start really looking closely at some of the things people illustrate, you'll realize that there's a lot of things they leave out of the drawing, but as long as the basic like mood or vibe is there, the eye reads it as a completed thing. Same thing with like drawing a shrunk down face. Okay, so this is where the center of the braids are. These are going to be the part lines. So what ends up happening is you end up drawing towards those braids, and you're going to leave a little space in between, because if any of you guys have had braids, you know that you end up having these lines of skin that you see on the scalp. And I'm just going back towards the braids, towards the back of the head as it goes. And you'll end up seeing a little bit of a lump on the top where the braids are going back and around the head. You see that? Now at this point, you can come down and you could do any kind of design with the braids that you would like. This is just more to teach you the concept that the things you want to look for is making sure that you have the textured design in the center and that you have a space in between each of the rows to show where the scalp is, because it gives the illusion of the braids. Now I'm marking in areas, and then I'm going to give them, each of those areas, I'm going to give them textures to be nice long braids. I'm doing it very quickly, but same sort of thing. I'm doing this, kind of going down, going down, going down. So it's giving a little bit of texture in each of these braids coming down. It wouldn't just be a straight, slick line. It has texture to it. And then you could also make them as thick as you want, or as long as you want. Okay, so let's do a little quickie on stilettos. And if we have time, I'll do a little quick conversation about flat feet as well. Okay, let's break a foot into shapes. So we've got we'll do it from the front, and then on the side and the back, we've got an ankle, ankle, ankle. This is going to be the front of the foot. Coming into the ankle. Now, I'll start with a stiletto, and then we'll move to a flat foot if we have the time. So I've got my cowbell. I have the ball of the foot, and she's got a little pointed toe happening. This is the side. Something that is always important to note, the heel always pops out further behind than the ankle. It's what helps counterbalance. And the ball of the foot is always going to be the center of your balance point. So if this is my ankle from the side, this is my heel. It's, you see, a little bit further back. This is my ankle. That's where my heel is. I can't put it in front of me because I'm wearing all black. And then I've got my cowbell and the ball of my foot. Okay, same thing, cowbell, center, and from the side, it's more of like a, it's still kind of cowbell-y. Okay, now from the back, we've got our ankle, and we have our heel, and we have ball of the foot. See? Same. So let's fill in the information. So what's going to happen here? We've got our ankle. And this is where you will see the front of the shoe coming around. Stiletto. Let's erase that so it doesn't look so crazy. And you can shade around the bottom of the toe as well if you want to. You can see that it's a point coming up. Now, this one's like my favorite to draw because I love a good stiletto. This feel holding a shoe like this, it's the best. So you need to decide how high do you want the arch of your shoe. That's what this guy's about, this little rainbow that's happening. And you're going to come up around the back of the heel and then come up. Mark in that ankle. Stiletto. And then the shoe, let's bring her foot more like this. Okay, so there is our, and the heel kind of always tends to come up on a shoe, but the actual sole is like right there. Now on the, looking at the back of the shoe, we have the ankle, and what happens with the heel, because it's, you notice, flattened out, this is where that heel comes up. It's going to come up around it, behind it like this. See how it comes up? Into a heel. And then this goes into the ball of the foot. The heel is going to come down further than the shoe, because if you're looking from behind, I don't know if you can see, that heel comes down a little bit further because of the foreshortening of the figure. Okay. And then this will go into the ankle and up. And so this is our shoes in a heel. Now let's look at, that looks better. Let's look at our foot flat, same sort of thing. And I'll just do it really quick. And then we're going to go into sharing. Bring it up a little bit more, so more space. Ankle, same sort of thing. It goes into, this all ends up getting flattened out from this coming up. So we have the ball of the foot, or we have the arch, and then we have the ball of the foot. So it goes into the ankle, into the center, and into the toes. And you'll probably see a little bit of the heel coming down. So what ends up happening with it is you see, let's put her in a flat. The foot ends up getting foreshortened. Now on the side, same thing, ankle, heel, but we're flattening out those shapes. Comes up a little bit arched, out to the heel. And now from the back. So that's the heel there on the ground. So it's flattened out. We got our ankle in there. And then you'll probably see part of the foot coming up in the front. This is the angle. And that is a, let's give her a shoe. And a sole to her shoe. There we go. All right, so it's about time to share. Did anyone have any last requests before we move into sharing? Curtain bangs. Mouse. Okay. Quickly go into proportion on men. That's actually a whole lesson in itself. But the basics to illustrating a male figure is that and start observing your friends. Obviously, all bodies are very different. Like my sister has a very long torso and shorter legs, and I have a short torso and long legs. It just depends on the person. Basics of a male is that the torso is this long, and then it goes into shorter legs, and it's much broader on the shoulders. Proportions for children, mostly all head, little teeny bodies, little short limbs. If a kid kids can't put their hands on the top of their head. Their hands are like here. So imagine how little that means their arms are. So that's my tutorial of men and children in 2 seconds. There was a really good one that I wanted to see. Oh, mouth. That's a good quick one. Because I talked about eyes, I talked about hair, and let's look at main information on mouth is that you get to decide what you would like the center of it to be like. If you're doing a quick mouth, you can do a line with an oval around it. And then you always make the corners of the mouth a little bit darker. You can give the center of the mouth some shape. It's kind of like if you're drawing a seagull when you were a kid and just like elongate it in the corners. And then from this point, you can keep it the shape, or you can give a dip in the center, make some like a small mountain, and round it out. Now, at this point, when you're filling in the color, same thing with the other parts of the face, the lines of a mouth go in this shape, this way, like in a circle. And then the mouth on the bottom, you're gonna round it out gently. Once you have it all filled in, this is a really excellent part of the face to pop in a reflection. Make the corners a little bit darker. And you can blend it. Notice the top is darker than the bottom. And now I'm going to go in with my eraser and I'm going to pop out some light, and then we're at time. So I'm going to go and I'm going to add a reflection through the bottom lip. I'm rotating my pencil as I erase it because you'll notice it starts to get dirty as you go. And then you can also add a little bit right on the edge. So that's a quickie lip. Okay, so at this point, I think that we are going to be moving to sharing.
That was amazing, everybody. Marina, yay!
I did to see what everyone did.
So great. Look at that, guys. You guys, I mean, can I just say that was a very, very VIP special sketching workshop. I mean, you know, nobody's putting a dollar amount on this, but y'all got yourselves like a $500 worth of a workshop, if not more, and you got it for free right here in our FIDM sketching workshop. Amazing, amazing. I mean, let me see, what did I write down? I wrote down, okay, the paper towel, love it. The cowbell and triangle for the hands. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Everything, the shading was, look at the hair. I love how you did all the different types of hair, from the afro to the braids, to the curls, to the straight, everything. So yeah, kudos, bowing down, bowing down. You know those bow down emoji, Marina? That's what I'm giving you. I'm doing